So thank you, everyone. I'm going to talk about medical application of robotics and mechatronics. And first of all, I want to explain why I'm talking about this in this workshop, which makes, I had a hard time to explain to my family why I was coming here to explain about my work. But in fact, it makes kind of total sense. I'm an engineer, so I do applied science, but I think fundamental science are the foundations of every engineering. And in fact, it's also not only because we applied what we learned, but also because there is a lot of technological transfer that can be performed. This has been done already a lot of times. For instance, transferring technology that was developed at CERN, like the World Wide Web, that now is everyone using in their laptops and in current life. Another case, for instance, was that no one did some years ago the link between aerospace applications and sport equipment, and they were developing materials with the worst case scenario, trying to find really strong materials and very light for aerospace. And then suddenly someone made the link, we need this in sport equipment. And that's how carbon fiber started to be used in a broader market and more profitable, like snowboards, golf, or rowing boats. So similarly, some weeks ago, we received a visit in EPFL. And while talking, we saw that there is a synergy between the robots that are being performed for big boss that could be applied for medical robotics. And basically, it is that there is, for both, a need of highly precise, compact mechatronic systems. So what I want to talk now is the state of the art of medical robotics and where I see the niche or the potential applications of this technology in this field. First of all, I want to explain how robots appeared in the operating room. So when I talk about surgical robots to my friends and my family, they always imagine something like this. And it's kind of cool, but it's not unfortunately, it's not the reality. And I'm going to explain also how they arrive into the operating rooms, how was this evolution in surgery. So basically, in the last 20 years, surgical techniques have considerably changed in an attempt to do less and less invasive techniques. The idea is normally to reduce the scars into the patient. So we changed from open surgery, where a really big incision was performed in the abdominal cavity of the patient to have direct access to their organs, to laparoscopic surgery or single incision laparoscopic surgery, in which very little incisions are performed to introduce endoscopes or laparoscopic tools, which are a very long tools. I don't know if I can have a pen around here. Yeah, here. Yes. So they are introduced into the trocar, and they can perform the surgery inside. And now there is a new trend that is natural orifice transluminal endoscopic surgery that use the natural orifice of the human body to introduce endoscopes or instruments to perform the surgery inside without performing any external incision. It's not only for cosmetic reasons. No, it's not to have this scar after an appendectomy. It's also reducing infection, hernias, tissue adhesion, hospitalization period, etc. So there are many improvements for the patient, but from the surgeon point of view, it's really challenging. They don't have the technology yet. So we can see now in this slide the side effects of this transition from the point of view of the surgeon. So in open surgery, they have normal manipulation. The surgeon is there, directly seeing their hands while performing the surgery. But then, while we have this transition to laparoscopic surgery, the difficulty increases. The dexterity of the tools is decreased a lot. And this increases the fatigue of the surgeon, making them more prompt to do errors. and they have less sense of touch. Basically, the problem of laparoscopic surgery is that while using these long tools, when we introduce it into the abdominal cavity, now the surgeon has to invert all his movements. So to have the tip of the tool on the left, he has to move to the right, always the same. Also, he doesn't have anymore this natural visuomotor coordination because he has to see a 2D screen that is somewhere else. He's not looking at his hands. So all this coordination must be learned with very long training. And of course, this is painstaking. They have to work with cadavers, simulators, etc., and they are prone to errors. Then in the case of natural orifice endoscopic surgery, there are some tools now that are kind of endoscopes, really complex. I'll see if the video works. They need two surgeons to control all the degrees of freedom of the tip. Is not intuitive at all, and that's why it's basically not performed nowadays. So this is mostly under the research. There are some surgeons in South America that are performing this kind of procedure with current instruments, so rigid laparoscopes that are introduced during the vagina, for instance, to do a cholecystectomy. But this is honestly basically like doing this. So it's just not appropriate because the technology is not there. So NOTES is still under research. There were, in 2011, around 300 cases, so there is not that much market. It's kind of the future. But laparoscopy is right now a gold standard. There are like over 1 million cases of cholecystectomy in the US every year, and 96% are performed with laparoscopy, even though they still have all these problems for the surgeon. That's why robotic surgery came into the field. So right now there is one really known system, which is Da Vinci system from Intuitive Surgical. It's the most used in abdominal procedures. And as you can see in the video, if it starts, yeah. It's a master-slave scheme. Most of the robotic devices work like this. So the surgeon is teleoperating this robot. He's comfortably seated. The robot is performing a laparoscopy, like in the other one. He has several tools that are introduced through trocars. The tools are much more dexterous than normal laparoscopes because it has a grist, so it has many other degrees of freedom. The natural visuomotor coordination is restored because you can see he has the eye-hand alignment again. He's moving his hands, and this robot is exactly imitating these movements inside the patient. So basically, the surgeon has a very big sense of telepresence because he's seeing the robot hands instead of his hands, which makes the use of the robot really intuitive. So that's why they are kind of very successful, and the company is called Intuitive Surgery because it just made laparoscopic surgery intuitive. So even though it's the most known commercial device, and it's currently used, I think there are 21 hospitals in Spain with this kind of robot, 3 in Madrid, to my knowledge. There are some other groups that are also trying to address the issues that this system has. So the Da Vinci system, that is the one on the left top, as you can see, is really bulky. It's over the patient, so it takes a lot of space over the patient. This arouses some safety concerns because if something goes wrong, it takes a lot of time to remove the robot over the patient. As it is too big, normally it has an operating room that can be used only for that because it takes a lot of space. And in one of the hospitals in Lausanne, they have to reinforce the floor to use this robot in the hospital. So the trend now is to go towards more compact robots, as we can see. Also from the same company, they are developing now the single incision laparoscopic solution, which is this one where all the laparoscopes are using the same trocar. But basically, the robot is still the same, so it still has these drawbacks that is very bulky. So this is a cholecystectomy. They are basically simulating the removal of the gallbladder. The German Space Agency is developing now the Miro Surge, which is also a robot for laparoscopic procedures. In this one, they are giving force feedback. So basically, the surgeon can sense what the robot is doing. He can touch and feel the touch of the organs and the tool-organ interaction with these haptic devices that are developed from Fourth Dimension. It's a spin-off company of our lab. And as you can see, the robot is much lighter and compact. There are several arms that can be configured differently around the patient in the OR, making more easy the access to the patient. Similarly, in TU Eindhoven, they are developing this other robot also for a laparoscopy. This one has only one arm, but also is much more compact. In this case, the surgeon is almost in the patient bed, so it's kind of close to the patient while performing the surgery. And they also want to give this force feedback again. But this trend of minimal invasive surgery and robotic surgery, it doesn't apply only to abdominal and thoracic surgery. There are some other surgeries where it's even more important the precision of the robot. For instance, in eye surgery, not all eye surgeries can be performed with laser, like to remove myopia, etc. There are some vitreoretinal surgeries that really need the surgeon to introduce the instrument directly into the eye. This, of course, needs a lot of precision. And normally, when the surgeons perform this, they can only perform it during some years of their career. Because first, they need a lot of expertise, so they cannot do it when they are very young. But through the age, it's very difficult to not have shake hands or commit these errors. So I'm going to present first the study hand eye robot from Johns Hopkins University, because you can see exactly how this kind of procedure is performed. So basically, this kind of needle-type tool is introduced into the eye. It's really important to have a remote center of rotation, which means that the point of incision of the eye is always a center of rotation, and there are no translations because you can do tissue damage. In this case, the steady hand eye robot is a collaborative robot. So basically, the surgeon is performing the movements, but the robot is filtering out all the tremor and giving some guidance. We can see also in another eye surgery robot from TU Eindhoven. On the right, we have basically the joystick. And we can see how the tool is always rotating with respect of the incision point. This is the robot outside. And if you see the tip, I don't know if it's easy to see because it's almost a needle, it's always a steady point. It's just it's a steady point that is just there. And then it has also the degree of freedom of introduction. A very different project is the Octomag from Brad Nelson's group, which in this case is a really almost micro robot that can swim somehow inside the eye. This is more for diagnosis and for measurements inside the eye. Basically, they are controlling this small sensor from outside with these huge coils with magnetic fields, and they can take different measurements on the vessels of the retina. Another application is neurosurgery. This is the Neuro project from the University of Calgary. So this project is really important because basically it was the first robotic surgery performed in the brain. They performed it in 2008 by being MRI guided. So using magnetic resonance in the operating room, it was a big challenge because normally they had to stop everything they are doing, put the patient into the MRI, take it out again. Then the organs and everything moves a little, then it's difficult to guide the surgeon in it. So to do everything at the same time, they have to develop all again. They have to develop all the tools that are MRI compatible, because if you don't think about it, something like this cannot happen, basically. You cannot put anything you want in an MRI because it has a magnet of minimum 1.5 Tesla. So it arouses a lot of safety problems. And basically, all the actuators and sensors that are commercially available have ferromagnetic parts that cannot be used because they can also have some effects in the image. So they have to develop all again two SCARA-like robot arms that could be used into the MRI, and now they are working on the new prototype. Another type of surgery is cardiovascular surgery. On the left, we have the Sensei robotic catheter from Hansen and Medical. It's a catheter that can be teleoperated by the surgeon with a joystick. They have some haptic guidance that are taken from the preoperative data, and that can guide the surgeon on these tasks. Usually is to place stents or to do ablation. On the right is a project of our lab, Maestro AF. It's for atrial fibrillation. Basically, atrial fibrillation is a problem of the heart, so the electric paths of the heart are kind of bad, so the rhythm is not correct, and it can be life-threatening. And the normal approach is to go to a catheter and do point-by-point ablation. Basically, they want to do a lesion to cut all these electrical pathways on the surface of the heart. So as you can see, the heart is moving. It's quite difficult to do this point-by-point ablation precisely. And they cannot guarantee that the ablation and is going to be done all the wall thickness of the heart. So in this project, what they want to do is to have a escorting catheter that is going outside, sometimes introduced by the esophagus. There is some magnetic coupling between the catheter inside and outside. They can measure forces, they can control the temperature, and thus guarantee this ablation through all the thickness of the heart. Again, here they need really small, compact, and precise actuators inside the catheter to be sure that this magnetic coupling has always the same force. And just to have an overview of others, there is endonasal surgery from the Vanderbilt University, or the Neuroglide and spine system, also from a spin-off company of our lab. Oh, sorry. That is working on the two robots, one of them for neurosurgery, the other to place screws directly in the spine. And for this, they need a huge precision, but as well really high stiffness, because basically the surgeon goes with a drill, so he has to apply a lot of forces, and they cannot move a millimeter more. Again, they have some preoperative data to guide the surgeon during the surgery. So all these applications, they are being performed in Europe, in the US. The European Commission is pushing a lot this kind of research. This is the Arachnes project, where my lab was also involved, the University of Barcelona here as well, with some companies, to create a new robot for endoluminal surgery. This is the last prototype we had. Is for single incision laparoscopy. There is a big robot that is outside, but already much more compact than the Da Vinci system. And two small robot arms with anthropomorphic shape to perform the surgery from outside. As well, another European project towards this direction is SAFROS project, already trying to define some standards for safety for the application of robots in the operating room. So as you can see, there is a big trend towards this direction. And inside the trends of robotic surgery, they are most of the labs, they are going towards more dexterous robots, more precise, more compact. They want to simplify the OR setting, so they don't want to spend 1 hour just setting up the robot, making it intuitive, trying to restore the sense of touch that the surgeon has lost with this transition, and making new surgical procedures possible, because with the new tools, now surgeons can think better ways to perform the surgery. And as I say, new standards for safety. Another application that we saw could be really interesting for these precise micromanipulators could be the test of MEMS or the single cell manipulation. This is a startup of EPFL that do these micro robots. They use really big piezoelectric actuators, but they are quite small, so they can do this kind of silicon tests directly with them under the microscope, or the single cell manipulation under the microscope as well. So basically, the potential applications for big bore robots that we've seen when we were discussing in our lab was like taking into account their characteristics. We really see that these actuators could be used for neurosurgery, for eye surgery, for cardiovascular procedures, as the last application I saw, life science for single cell manipulation and MEMS testing. And I think that if they can fit 10,000 degrees of freedom in 1 meter of diameter, the transition to these applications will be much easier because the constraints are lower. So there is a great potential on this. So basically, the conclusions that I want you to take away from this presentation is that there are many advantages of robotic surgery because it can be more precise. They can reach, with minimal incision, areas of the human body that are not reachable with conventional surgery. They have some advanced features such as tremor filtering, guidance with the preoperative data. It can be teleoperated from a different location, even though now it's not performed usually, and it's more ergonomic for surgeons. So this is increasingly accepted by patients. Already from 2004 to 2008 in the US, the number of urologic procedures performed with the robotic device increased a lot. And basically, medical robotics is not the future, it's right now done. It's possible. The technology is there. There is only a transfer of technology that has to be done. And they really need adapted instruments. So basically, I think there are a great variety of applications for technology transfer in this case. Thanks a lot.